But listen, I again, just want to say welcome to all of you. So let me jump right in. First, why is Virginia so important? You know how Virginia hadn't had electoral votes behind a Democratic candidate since 1964. It's been 44 years. And that means we're in the taken for granted list of states. And I don't care whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or independent, you do not want to be taken for granted. Because what happens when the Republicans are so sure they're going to win and the Democrats are so sure that they can't win, then in presidential politics, they give Virginia a pass. And so the candidates don't come, and the ads aren't on TV as much, and there's not as many opportunities like this to really talk about issues. And then come election night, we all are praying and crossing our fingers, but we got to wait and see what happens in Oregon or Hawaii or California or something to figure out what's going to happen in the election. The good news is this time, for the first year in 44 years, Virginia is definitely in play. Every poll in this race, public polls, Mason-Dixon, Rasmussen, Survey USA, the internal polls of the campaign show this thing is a dead heat. And the fact that we are in a dead heat in the middle of August, when we have been an uncompetitive state in the past, is a wonderful, wonderful thing. In fact, I saw a headline in the Washington Post the other day that I just loved. It says, "McCain thinks Virginia may be winnable." It was like, wow, it's news. It's news that a Republican might be able to win Virginia, right? That a Republican presidential candidate would think Virginia would be winnable would not be news until 2008. But it's news this year, because Barack Obama is exciting Virginians and folks all across this nation. And we have a great, great opportunity come election day. So here's the message I'll tell you right now, and it's the message I'll probably tell you right as I finish in an hour and 10 minutes from now. This thing's in our hands in Virginia. It's in our hands. Right. There are paths for Barack Obama to get 270 electoral votes without Virginia. Okay, he can get there without Virginia. But if he gets Virginia, I don't think there is a single path where John McCain can get to 270, okay? So, that means we don't need to stress out about what's going on in Nevada or Colorado or New Mexico or Arizona or how the polls are looking in Iowa or any of that. If we just hammer down and get the electoral votes and votes here in Virginia, then we're not going to have to wait up to West Coast time or Hawaii time to figure out the outcome of this election. They'll call Virginia, and when they call Virginia, we're going to know the outcome of the race. Okay? So, that's why your energy and your effort and working in the grassroots here is so very important. And I've heard the Obama campaign folks, the senator himself, and David Plouffe and David Axelrod say Virginia, they think it's ground zero, because they really believe it's an East Coast state. The polls close at 7, the early closing. If we win Virginia, they know how the night's going to come out. Wow. So that is a very powerful thing, and that's why this is so important. I endorsed Senator Obama as the first outside of Illinois statewide official to endorse him. I endorsed him a week after he jumped into the race in Springfield, and I was actually, he knew I was going to get on board a couple months earlier. I was working for Mark Warner, as many of you were, when Mark was thinking about running for president. When Mark decided, for family reasons, the age of 3 teenage girls in the house, that was a challenge, and he didn't want to let Lisa deal with that challenge all by herself. And so he decided to not run for president. And shortly after, Barack called me and said, "Look, I want you to help me. I'm thinking about running. What do you think?" And I said, "I think you should run, and if you do, I'm going to help you." Why did I endorse him so early? It was 9 months until the next governor after me got into the race. I endorsed him because I really have come to know him and I have great regard for him. By the time February 07 rolled around, he had campaigned for me for governor. He had campaigned for Jim Webb for Senate, and he and I had spent a lot of time together. His mother and my mother grew up in the same little town in Kansas, El Dorado, Kansas. And that, when we found that out, that was like, separated at birth. So we just developed a friendship from that. But over the course of now, for a couple of years, and then even more since I've become a national co-chair of the campaign and worked so closely with him, a couple of things have really struck me about him. First, I'm impressed by Barack's excellence. Yeah. And I think it's fine for Americans to demand and to expect excellence. Not mediocrity, not we have to settle, not we have to pick a lesser of two evils, but excellence. Right. Excellence in education. Right? Excellence in education. I heard the other guy say, well, kind of an elite guy went to Ivy League schools. Look, this guy did not come up out of means or contacts. He didn't have many means, and he didn't have a lot of contacts, but he had a big dream, and so did his mother, and so did his grandparents. This dream of great education would be the path to success. So educational excellence is the first thing. Then you see excellence in judgment. Again and again, he's made very, very strong judgments. At times, when others were saying go one direction, he would stand up and say that's the wrong direction, the war in Iraq being the principal reason. But he's articulated why he thought it was wrong, and he didn't mind if he was alone. He was going to say why he thought what we were doing was wrong or why we should go a different direction. But the excellence that I think matters the most to me is excellence of character.
Yeah.
Excellence of character. Because it is character that gives you the best indicator for what somebody's going to do in the unknown challenge of tomorrow. He's shown good judgments. He's got a great educational background, but character is what really counts. When Barack finished at Columbia and could have gone to Wall Street or done whatever he did, or when he finished at Harvard Law School and could have gone to one of the big firms, again and again, what he's decided to do is I want to take my skills and I want to put them to use to serve others. And so coming to Chicago to work with folks in neighborhoods that have been hit by plant closings, and being in the church basements and at the kitchen tables and in the neighborhood gathering places to work with people who had lost jobs and lost hope, it will make me feel very, very good as we wrestle with tough economic challenges to have a guy sitting in the White House who has not only lived that experience, but he sat and worked with people as they're trying to get hope and move through that experience. We can use that in the White House. And that excellence of character was the first thing, the excellence all around. First thing that impressed me about Barack. Second thing was this. I know we needed a unifier. We needed a unifier. I'm a proud Democrat, but I don't believe Democrats have every answer or every solution. We got to work with independents. We got to work with Republicans who will work with us. We got to be able to do that. Because if we don't, we'll just be, you see what happens. We're all up close and personal with Washington and Washington-style politics here. Things get gridlocked and things don't happen. And things are bitter. We've just come through an administration that if somebody stands up and says they got a different point of view, they just immediately try to shout you down, brand you as a not patriotic. Right. They love this Karl Rove style stuff, and now Rove and all his buddies are running McCain's campaign, where it's all about the negatives, and it's about, can we figure out a way to get 52% to beat up on the 48%, and then that's a way to win an election? And I'm tired of that kind of politics, and I'm tired of that kind of government, right? And so, a guy like Barack, who is about bringing people together, I mean, it's in his DNA. It's what he's done as a community organizer, what he's done as a state senator, U.S. senator. If you look at his legislative accomplishments, they all look almost identical. He will find an issue that he cares about. He will find a Republican who cares about it. They will jointly sponsor, as an Illinois senator, campaign finance reform of the criminal justice system, health care for kids. At the federal level, he and Senator Lugar, nuclear non-proliferation, trying to control nuclear weapons so they don't get into the hands of terrorists, campaign finance reform, government accountability. He's always going to reach across the aisle and find somebody and say, look, we both care about this. It's important for the state, important for the country. Let's make it happen. I want a unifier, a true unifier. I want a true unifier in the White House, and Barack Obama will bring that to us. And then the last thing, and this is the thing that I think we all feel so deeply, is we want somebody who can really bring about change. We want somebody who can bring about change. The last time I saw a poll about this, it's like 82% of Americans feel like we need to make a fundamental change in direction. And I want to just say for a minute what that change is. I don't think it's like change to something new, different, and untried. I think it's change like to get us back on track and to honor and value the principles that Americans have always honored and valued. You know, equality and opportunity. And we want to be the good guys in the world, set a great example, and have others admire us. That's the kind of change we need. That's the kind of change we need. And Barack is clearly about change. You know, when he started his campaign, he said, look, I'm not going to take money from PACs and lobbyists. Now, a lot of people said, well, that's kind of weird. That's not what people usually do running for office. Hey, I didn't do that when I was running for office. Not a lot of PACs and lobbyists supported me, but I was willing to accept. But he said, I'm not going to do it. And he wanted to send a message, and the message was this, not that lobbyists are bad. Lobbyists have knowledge just like anybody does. Their voices ought to be heard. But he was saying, in Washington, lobbyists shouldn't have a veto. They shouldn't write the rules and have a veto over stuff. Sometimes I think that government is what lobbyists will allow government to do, and that's not what government's supposed to be. It's supposed to be about people want to do and what the elected representatives want to do. And so what Barack has done by saying, nope, not taken from PACs and lobbyists, share ideas if you want. I'll hear good ideas from you. But I'm not letting you buy the seats at the table and write the rules and have the veto power. That's going to be the people and the legislature and the representatives get to do that. And so I know that that kind of attitude is going to be an attitude we need. Because some of you have wondered, I'm sure just what I have, why is every presidential election the candidate saying, we got to do something about health care, by gosh. And yet, 4 years come by, we got to do something about health care, by gosh. Well, why don't they do something about health care? And I'll tell you why they don't. With 47 million Americans uninsured, the health care rules don't change because the folks who are writing the rules like it just exactly the way that it is. Since President Nixon, every president has said we have to do something really important about energy. And yet we haven't. We just put 2 energy whizzes into the White House in 2001. Both of their professions, energy executives, right? So they've got to be experts about this. Gas was $1.40 a gallon, and now it's $3.54. Who knows where it'll be? And that's because the folks who are writing the rules like it just the way that it is. Well, Barack doesn't like the way that it is, and he wants to write rules in a different way and have different people at the table. So all of those reasons made me get on board with Barack. And I'm so happy that I did. I've been a national co chair since February '07. It was 3 guys from Chicago and me. You know, I was the weird Southerner when it got started. That's a slight exaggeration, but pretty much it. It was a lot of Chicago accents and one guy from Richmond. But as it has grown and as we've seen this campaign progress and grow, I've been so proud to be part of it. And I'll tell you this, this is a good feature about Barack. Whether it has been good or bad, whether he's been winning primaries or whether he was 20 points behind in polls month after month after month, I've never seen him either too excited or too down. Right. He's like, we got a plan. This is the plan. I got faith in the voters. This is going to work. And you know, that quality of even keel is so important for the next president. We can't have somebody deal with all these challenges who's going to go off one way or the other way or the other. So, let me talk about the issues of the economy a little bit. And I will say, I try to be a good spokesperson for the campaign, but the book that I got about the policies is like that thick. And I've really tried hard to get them down, and I'm going to boil them down into the Tim Kaine version of the key elements of the Barack Obama economic plan. And then I'm going to open it up, and we'll take questions about that or about anything, or suggestions or comments, or hey, why don't you guys do this? I mean, we can trade ideas. So let me talk about the economy. The next president, in my view, is going to walk into the hardest situation in the White House since FDR walked in 1933. When he came in 1933, many of the nation's banks had closed, and we were in a depression that had gone on for some period of time under President Hoover, and it didn't look like there was any easy path out, and there wasn't an easy path out. It was not quick for FDR to get this nation back on the right track, but he walked into a very difficult situation with a bad economy and with the storm clouds starting to gather over in Europe as Germany remilitarized. So here's what our president's walking into. I'm not expecting massive bank failures, although we've seen some. But the June inflation number was the biggest inflation increase in June for 27 years. And the White House just reforecast the federal deficit to a level that's going to be the largest deficit in American history, just a few years after a Democratic president walked out of the White House with one of the largest surpluses in American history. We've got energy prices at levels that we have never seen and never expected and never planned for. And we've got food prices starting to go up. We have foreclosures and crunches in the credit market affecting not just homeowners but businesses. And on top of that, we got 2 wars in Iraq and Afghanistan that are costing American lives and that are very complicated in where they are right now, where there are no easy or quick solutions or answers. And beyond those 2 countries, we have instability. Just in the last week, while we have focused our attention on Iraq, the Russia that we thought when the wall fell, we had won the Cold War, has been remilitarizing itself, and they feel like they can do whatever they want to do with impunity now because the United States is so focused on these other things that there's no way they have the resources to stretch over to basically keep us in check. And so that's what this president's walking into. Of all these issues, I want to talk about the economy. The economy is in a very, very tough place with interest rates and deficits and energy costs and job rates slowing, jobs going overseas, and America not seeming as competitive, the dollar weakening against foreign currencies, all of these things happening at once. I want a person who understands the economy and understands what it's going to take to get us back. And I say this as somebody, I spend a lot of my time working on the economy. Virginia just got named the best state for business in America for the 3rd year in a row by Forbes.com. That's who we are. We believe in a strong business climate because it creates opportunity for folks. And I believe that Barack Obama understands the economy and understands what it's going to take to get us back. Here are the key elements. First, how do you measure success? That's really important to start off with. Senator Obama measures success by how the middle class is doing. John McCain, from looking at his policies, and I mean, I've read his website stuff too, I think he measures success by how the bigger businesses and the wealthier are doing. And so let me tell you why I say that. Barack Obama, in tax cuts, he's going to focus tax cuts on middle class people who can really use them to deal with the stresses and strains people are experiencing right now. Senator McCain, the tax cut policy is for the wealthy, overwhelmingly for the wealthy. But for Barack Obama, it's for the middle class. That's so very important. In businesses, Senator McCain's business strategy is tax cuts for the big companies, the oil companies that are reporting record profits, while for Senator Obama, his tax policies are focused on small businesses. For example, eliminating the capital gains tax on small businesses and new businesses is something that only Senator Obama is pushing. So when you go back to it, there's a fundamental first question. You can't be successful if you don't know what the bullseye is that you're going toward. For Obama, the bullseye is middle class success. For Senator McCain, it seems to be the success of the biggest and the wealthiest. And that is a fundamental difference. What are some other things that Senator Obama is going to do to try to ensure middle class success? He's focused on issues that are kitchen table issues like the cost of college. You know, education is the best economic development plan there is. There is. And in our nation, here's a trouble spot for us. Our higher ed attainment rate of our adult population in America and in Virginia has been flat for the last 2 decades. In fact, in the United States, it's not just been flat, it's actually starting to decline a little bit. While other nations are zipping by us now in the percentage of their adult population that are getting college degrees, and one of the reasons that our percentages have been flat or even a little bit declining has been cost. The costs have gone up dramatically. In Virginia, I wish we were doing better holding the line on costs. We got to figure out better strategies to do that. Well, what Barack is talking about is a $4,000 tax credit, a one-time tax credit for each individual who goes into college. That would have a significant impact in helping people get skills individually, but then growing the economy as a whole, helping the middle class. So that's the beginning issue I want to talk about that's a real difference, is where is the focus? Middle class success is Barack's focus. Second, how do we stimulate and grow the economy? This is one that's really important to me, very important to me, and it's important to you. It was mentioned that you guys in Prince William, and I don't know it because I live it, but I know it because I know so many of you, you're driving farther than just about anybody in the United States to get to work. You're dealing with congestion, you're dealing with this gas price issue. We as a nation are letting our infrastructure degrade and decline. We're not investing in roads and public transit and rail like other nations are. And Senator Obama has a plan for that, and Senator McCain doesn't. Right now at the federal level, the Federal Highway Trust Fund is going to be bankrupt in 2009. In fact, there's a projected $3 billion deficit in the Federal Highway Trust Fund. And you know how President Bush in this budget proposed to deal with it? Take money out of public transit to put into the Highway Trust Fund. When gas is at $4 a gallon and the demand for public transit like VRE or Metro or bus systems or other public transit is as high as it's ever been, you're going to take money out of public transit? Makes no sense. Makes no sense. Well, Barack Obama has a plan for infrastructure investment, for road and rail and public transit, for broadband, to build out the nation's infrastructure so that we can grow our economy. Now, what does an infrastructure investment do? It does 2 things for you. First, infrastructure investments don't just happen by magic. To do them, you got to hire people. So it's jobs. At a time when we're losing jobs or outsourcing jobs, you build infrastructure, there are jobs right here in our states and in our country, and that's what Barack believes is an important way to stimulate the economy, because it's payroll and et cetera. But the good news is, after the payroll is done and the projects are up, then the projects help the economy as well in these infrastructure investments. Senator McCain has said virtually nothing about infrastructure. I'm troubled that we've had more discussion and more focus on rebuilding the infrastructure of Iraq than we have on building this nation. And that will change, and that will change under Senator Obama. I'm going to do two more economic issues and open up. The third one is healthcare. Now, healthcare is more than an economic issue. It's a compassion issue. It's a human services issue. Why do nations that spend less than us have healthcare access for all? You know, we spend a lot more, but we can't. So it's an issue of, you know, kind of, I think, basic human dignity, but it's also a tremendous issue of competitiveness and economic power for our country that we don't have a great healthcare system. We manage illness well, if you have insurance, but we don't promote health. We have an awful lot of small businesses that can't afford to buy health insurance for their employees. They try, they want to. I've talked to these folks, but they can't figure out how to afford it. And we have self-employed individuals who don't have a way to get affordable health insurance. And so what Senator Obama has done is said, look, we're going to set a goal that by the end of my first term in office, we're going to cover everybody. We're going to figure out ways to cut costs by using technology and health records in ways that will make the system of higher quality, delivering better outcomes. We've got to make an upfront investment to do it, but if we do that, it will pay off. We're going to do simple things. The prescription drug benefit that got passed under President Bush. Congress said at the beginning, okay, here's the first ground rule. We will not negotiate to get the best price from the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, give me a break. A sixth grader wouldn't have done that deal. But up front, we're not going to negotiate to get the best price from pharmaceutical companies on drugs. Well, guess what? We have a lot of purchasing power. If we had negotiated, we could have gotten much better price, brought down the cost of pharmaceuticals for our seniors. But instead, we pay more for a worse program. Well, we're not going to be doing that under President Obama. There are going to be very basic things we can do to try to bring costs down and expand coverage. And finally, he will work with especially small businesses to find ways that small businesses can band together to afford insurance. And that will make our businesses more competitive. The last thing I want to talk about is energy. And energy is, and as I've talked to the senator, he has said in his first term as president, obviously dealing with the wars and anything that in foreign policy, that is an everyday job. And dealing with the economy is an everyday job. But he said the two big policy issues that he feels like he has to wrestle to the ground with Congress in his first term are the healthcare issue and the energy issue. And the energy issue is the combination of every other issue altogether. It's about energy. It's about costs for middle-class folks who are stressed. It's about the environment. It's about our national security. And it's also about our economy, because if we do it right, we can create new economic opportunities and new research and innovation that will not just solve a problem, but propel us forward. And that's what Barack Obama wants to do with respect to energy. Here's the difference between he and Senator McCain when it comes to energy, just as I crystallize it. Barack's energy strategy says there's no silver bullet and there's no quick answer to the problem that we've got ourselves in, this overdependence on foreign oil that's now costing us all so much. We got to have a comprehensive policy. Policy has to be truly comprehensive. Oil, sure. We got to find oil. We got to find more oil. Oil companies are sitting on 70 million acres of land that they have oil leases on where they're not drilling. Right. And so why not say, look, use those leases or give them up and let somebody else use them. But make no mistake, Barack has said while oil should be a piece, oil is the small piece of this. Because we got to break our addiction to oil, especially to foreign oil from countries that hate the United States. And we got to invest in alternative energy. We have to do that. We have to do that. Other nations have done it. There isn't any reason why we can't. And to do that, we have to unleash the great American ingenuity and entrepreneurship and the power of our research institutions. Okay? The Senator McCain energy plan is basically, I think the guy's running to be dentist in chief. It's just drill, drill, drill. That's basically it. And I got to give credit. That line is not original to me. That's an Evan By line that I really like. So let somebody say that I tried to take credit for somebody else's joke. But that really is the Senator McCain thing. We got to drill now, drill now, drill everywhere. Well, wait a minute. We're 3% of the world's population. We're using 30% of the world's oil. So is the solution really I mean, when you think about this for our kids and grandkids, by gosh, we should be using 40% of the world's oil, or maybe 50% of the world's oil. It's an unsustainable, dead-end solution to focus on drilling for oil as the major way out of this. It's going to make oil companies mighty happy. It's going to make their profits go up even higher, but it is not going to solve the problem. It's not going to leave this world for our kids and grandkids in a position where we need to be. And so Barack's idea is, look, we got to make these investments. And if you see what's happened in other countries, a country like Brazil, that's energy independent. 30 years ago, we in Brazil were just about identical in the percentage of oil that we imported. They're energy independent now because they perfected using sugarcane to create biodiesel and ethanol that they can use for energy sources. And other countries with wind power or solar power, or France with their perfected, ever better nuclear power programs. These are all things that we can do to break our addiction on oil. We've got to have energy that's reliable, stable, relatively low cost, that's clean, and that is American, so we're not relying on others. And you know, I think that President Obama will do this. When John Kennedy, as president, said, we're going to get to the moon in 10 years, they organized everything around that, getting people to be scientists and engineers, getting people to be mathematicians, and we got to the moon in a decade, but we did a lot more. All those scientists, all those engineers, all that focus on research, you know, produced other innovations that have helped our country. You know, the internet and other inventions and processes and techniques all came out of that. Even Tang, that drink that you stir, you know, that came out of the space program. So if the next president says we're going to do something about energy independence, we're going to make this a passion for our nation, who knows what the great ingenuity of this country will come up with and how it will help our economy succeed in going forward. So, you know, I think this choice, and Sheila said it when she came up, this is a real clear choice. This is a real clear choice. I hear some people say, as they're wrestling with this election, you know, and the polls are close, you'll hear somebody who's arguing for the other side say, oh, you want to take a risk? You want to take a risk with Obama? I don't know that we want to take a risk with him. Well, let me tell you what risk is. Let me tell you what risk is. When the economy is what it is, we'd elect for president a guy who says, I don't know much about the economy. That's what John McCain has said. You know, I'm not really an economy guy. Well, look, maybe if the economy was great, we could take a risk putting somebody in who didn't know anything about the economy, but not when the economy is like it is now. We can't take that risk. We got to put somebody in who understands it, who gets it, who's been there with families who are hurting, who understands what the issues are and can help lead us forward. I'll tell you what a risk is. In a world that is as dangerous as we're in now, I mean, is there anybody left other than John McCain who says, no, it was still the right thing to go into Iraq when every rationale advanced by the White House has basically been demonstrated to be based on bad intelligence or faulty in one way or the other, when the prosecution and management of the war has stumbled again and again and again? And folks have left the White House and left and said we shouldn't have done it, and it was, you know, who tried to, they're all pointing fingers at each other about who was the one that made the mistake or whose fault it was, and Senator McCain still says, no, it's the right thing to do. That's risk. That's risk to put somebody in with that attitude. And so, this election is so critical. It's so critical. And I think, you know, I'm just thanking our lucky stars that we have a candidate who's not only a great candidate, but who's a candidate who really believes in the power of this, the person-to-person side. You know, this is the exciting thing about this campaign, is it's not just TV ads and, you know, that people say, oh, Barack is an inspirational guy, you know, or McCain, oh, he's a celebrity. Let me tell you something. It ain't going to be the inspiration or the celebrity that's going to win this race. The Barack Obama campaign is most known for the fact that they are a great grassroots organization that relies on neighbors and friends and co-workers and people in the church and all around to spread the word. That's the genius of this campaign, is it relies on regular people, small donors, not just the big lobbyists and big donors, volunteers, not just the paid campaign consultants. That's what's so powerful about this campaign. It's kind of changed this nation needs.